Good evening. Welcome to the State of Business on our television with me, Thiranta Gunawardana. Let's take a look at today's headlines first. President Sirisena meets Sri Lankan community in Kenya. And Sri Lanka's first digital customer experience management exchange to take place on 4th of April. In your top story today, during his 4-day official visit to Kenya, President Maithripala Sirisena met with the Sri Lankan community living in Kenya on Saturday. During his meeting with the Sri Lankan community in Kenya, President Sirisena stated that the task of making Sri Lanka a state where the future generation is financially prosperous and disciplined is currently underway. Currently, a majority of the Sri Lankans working in Kenya are employed in the fields of clothing, horticulture, hydroelectricity, and the automotive industry. During the meeting, President Sirisena inquired from Sri Lankans living in Kenya regarding their issues and promised to provide speedy solutions to issues that were voiced. President Sirisena also said that his objective is to develop the country while ensuring peace and reconciliation among all communities in the country. The Sri Lanka Institute of Service Management recently announced the inauguration of Sri Lanka's first digital customer experience management exchange, which will be held on the 4th of April in Colombo. Speaking during the event, Vice President of SLISM, Sandra D'Souza, made the following statement regarding SLISM and its objectives.
So we are a group of passionate, committed practitioners and service management practitioners who have come together to simply and purely for the passion of giving back something to the Sri Lankan service industry. We want to establish the profession of being in service management, establish that as a mainstream profession, give it the recognition, give it ways in which Sri Lankan practitioners in the service industry can have expertise, certification programs, perhaps even leading to degree programs in service management. We want to bring all that to Sri Lanka, and above all, we want to create a platform for best practice sharing. We want to create a platform for government and private sector, so it's public and private sector, service industry organizations to come together to share practices, to share knowledge, to share their learnings, and to build and foster service management as a key practice in Sri Lanka.
Speaking further, VP of SLISM, Sandra D'Souza, expressed the following regarding the services sector in Sri Lanka.
So if you look at the service sector in Sri Lanka, if you look at the background of it, the service sector in Sri Lanka encompasses 60% of country's GDP and is instrumental in furthering the nation's growth. So if you look at the key service sector industries in Sri Lanka, you will find that there's financial, legal, logistics, accounting, education, hospitality, IT, public services, tourism, healthcare, and insurance, which are the mainstream service industries in the country. Now this represent, and of course the telecoms industry which I represent, which I forgot. So these industries account for a major portion of the services that represent the country's GDP. So you can well understand why we really want to bring this partnership and bring this service fraternity and the service community in Sri Lanka together to try and elevate all of this to make it even better, so that a united Sri Lanka who is focused on digital transformation, who's focused on customer service and customer experience management can add further to growing that GDP of the country.
According to the Sri Lanka Purchasing Managers Index issued by the Department of Statistics at the Central Bank of Sri Lanka for the month of February 2019, manufacturing activities have increased, albeit at a slower rate compared to January 2019. The overall PMI index value for the manufacturing sector dropped 3.8 index points to 50.6 overall compared to 54.4 index points in January 2019. This was due to a decrease in new orders and production, especially in the manufacturing of textiles, wearing apparel, leather and related activities. Stock of purchases also decreased during the month in line with the decrease in new orders and production. A significant decline in employment was experienced as some employees moved to seasonal jobs for better salaries, and this partly impacted on a decrease in production. However, new orders increased, mainly driven by the manufacturing of food and beverages activities with the continued festival season demand. The overall PMI index value for services sector dropped 2.8 index points to 53.0 overall compared to 55.8 index points in January 2019. The expansion in business activities was mainly seen across financial services and the transportation subsectors due to technology-based improvements and expansion in export volumes. Both new businesses and expectations for activities slowed down due to many taking a wait-and-see approach as there is an uncertainty in the business climate. Further expectations in the wholesale and retail trade subsectors deteriorated due to new vehicle duty reforms introduced in the budget 2019. It's time for a short commercial break. Do stay tuned for more news coming after this. Welcome back. Huawei Technologies Sri Lanka today held a media briefing regarding its commitment towards development of Sri Lanka's ICT enablement. Speaking during the briefing, Chief Executive Officer of Huawei Technologies Lanka, Shunli Wong, made the following statement.
Nowadays, most of the innovation driven by emerging market, not the developed market anymore. I take one as an example. In Sri Lanka market, I believe most of you already enjoyed that WTTX, the mobile home broadband, which several operators already provided one. We put the latest technology, massive MIMO, which is one of the 5G technology already used in the 4G networks.
Speaking further, Shunli Wong expressed the following on how innovation is driven by emerging markets as opposed to established markets.
Nowadays, most of the innovation driven by emerging market, not the developed market anymore. I take one as an example. In Sri Lanka market, I believe most of you already enjoyed that WTTX, the mobile home broadband, which several operators already provided one. We put the latest technology, massive MIMO, which is one of the 5G technology already used in the 4G networks.
In more developments, the 8th EU-Sri Lanka Investor Dialogue was held at the Ministry of Development Strategies and International Trade recently, where many of the early outstanding issues and matters were resolved through dialogue and the joint efforts of the Sri Lanka and EU authorities. Minister of Development Strategies and International Trade Malik Samaravikrama, who chaired sessions and led the Sri Lankan delegation, stated that Sri Lanka is committed to clearing outstanding issues and thanked the ambassadors for their support and cooperation. The minister added that Sri Lanka has a new budget that is very liberal and that is also pro-trade and pro-investment, and that the budget includes many reforms that cover all segments of Sri Lanka's population, including the lower income groups, public officials and armed forces. Minister Samaravikrama was assisted by Nalin Bandara, Deputy Minister of Development Strategies and International Trade, S.T. Kodikara, Secretary to the Ministry of Development Strategies and International Trade, Champika Malalgoda, the Director General of the BOI, Indira Malwata, Director General of the Exports Development Board, and Mangal Ayappa, Technical Advisor to the Ministry. The Sri Lanka institutions present were the Board of Investment of Sri Lanka, the Department of Public Finance, Ministry of Digital Infrastructure, Sri Lanka Customs, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Ports and Shipping, Civil Aviation Authority of Sri Lanka, Inland Revenue Department, Department of Fiscal Policy and the Department of Immigration and Immigration. Ambassador to the European Union, H.E. Tunlai Mag, was assisted by senior officials and their respective missions. Buoyed by its unprecedented rise in the latest global doing business ranks, Afghanistan, seeking to revive trade with Sri Lanka and strengthen economic ties between the two countries, will open a direct air corridor for trade later this month. Meeting with Minister Ishaq Batuddin on Friday at the ministry, Afghanistan's ambassador to Sri Lanka, M. Ashraf Haidari, said the Afghan government would like to extend the air corridor launched 2 years ago to take domestic goods to countries in the neighborhood and beyond the region to Sri Lanka as well. Ambassador Haidari was joined by the Afghan embassy's first secretary to Sri Lanka, Munir Gaisi. The Afghan envoy said that the proposed corridor is a direct air link to Colombo, but since there is no direct Kabul-Colombo connectivity at present, the air link will have to be operated through Mumbai or New Delhi until a direct connection to Colombo is established. In its Doing Business 2019 report, the World Bank said Afghanistan to be one of the top 10 improvers in doing business alongside China and India. Afghanistan climbed 16 positions in rankings from the previous 2018 report to a new rank of 167. It's time for another short commercial break. Do stay tuned for Stock Watch after this. Welcome back. Trading at the Colombo Stock Exchange ended on a negative note today. The all share price index dropped 1.26 points to close at 5,614.98, and the S&P SL 20 dropped 0.1 points to close at 2,761.00. The turnover was 251.3 million rupees and 7.5 million shares were traded. Now let's take a look at today's forex rates. And that's all the news we have for you today. Do join us tomorrow at the same time at 8:15 for more of the very latest. Until then, take care. Good night.